The Istanbul Cipher. Chapter 21. They came in one by one. First Emre, hood up, laptop case slung across his back like a shield. Then Ayla, sharp, tired, carrying a worn city map curled in her hand like scripture. Sibyl followed, silent as breath, her eyes scanning the room before stepping inside. Layla was last. She didn't knock. Just entered and stood at the edge of the light, her grandmother's scarf around her shoulders. No greetings, no hugs, just presence. I closed the door behind her and locked it. Sibyl unfolded the backup floor plan across my kitchen table, her fingers trailing the inked lines with reverence. "This line," she said, tapping the faded margin, "matches the maintenance maps from the 1930s. Look, parallel to the old storm channel." Ayla nodded. "It's still there. Not sealed. We have to go beneath." Layla reached into her bag and pulled out the letter, Anahed's last note, and laid it beside the map. "Entry is possible," she read, voice steady, "if one walks beneath, not toward." Something shifted then. The air thickened, not with dread, but commitment. No one looked at me for instructions. They didn't need them. I stepped back and leaned against the counter, arms crossed, heart thudding against bone. They don't need saving anymore. They're here to finish something. I just had to keep up. "What's our window?" I asked. Ayla stepped forward, tapping a point on the plan with a pen that clicked like a starting gun. 22 minutes. From the last patrol to the next. That's all we get. No one flinched. Sibyl murmured, "It'll be enough." Layla caught my eye. "This isn't just to reveal something," she said. "It's to remember it out loud." And just like that, the room turned from a safe house into a war room. Not rage, not revenge, just resolve. We weren't waiting anymore. We were moving. Ayla took the lead. She unfurled a second map, laminated, scuffed at the corners, and spread it beside the floor plan. She pointed to a red line cutting beneath the sealed church site. "It's a service tunnel," she said, "originally built for water control before the metro lines went in. Most of it's collapsed or repurposed, but this section," she tapped, "is dry and still partially navigable." "Still navigable?" I asked. She nodded. "Tested it yesterday. Tight squeeze. Smells like rust and ghosts. But it'll get us under the building." Sibyl leaned in, eyes scanning. "How do we get into the tunnel?" "There's a storm drain here." Ayla circled a narrow alley off Yeniçeriler Caddesi. I traced the piping last week with a drain snake camera. She glanced up, dark-eyed and calm. "It'll be unlocked. No cameras until the interior stairwell." Emre whistled softly. "You scouted all this alone?" She shrugged. Didn't have anything better to do. I exhaled through my nose. "What about guard patrols?" "Two-man sweep every 30 minutes, she said. "One external, one perimeter interior. There's a blind spot between 2:04 and 2:26 a.m. The thermal drone only sweeps west to east, and the tunnel's south-facing." She looked up. "We go in at 2:06. We're out by 2:26. That's the window." No one questioned it. She pulled a folded page from her notebook and handed it to each of us. Timings, roles, contingency exits, even a code phrase if comms failed. It wasn't reckless. It was surgical. Layla stared at the sheet in silence. "You planned for failure too." Ayla nodded. "Hope is not a strategy." But I could see it, flickering beneath the caution in her voice. She believed this could work. I looked around the room. A living room turned ops center. 4 teenagers turning resistance into logistics. This is what history doesn't show, I thought. Not the artifact, the act. They weren't just going back in. They were doing it on their own terms. Emre adjusted his glasses, then spun his laptop toward us. The screen was a cascade of code and signal maps, each one tagged with codenames like Atlas.Mirror01 and Echo Ghost. "The live stream's back," he said, voice low but certain. "Kind of." I leaned in. "Kind of." I rebuilt the app core, stripped out dependencies, rewrote the stream logic from scratch. His fingers danced across the keys, pulling up a new interface, sleek, minimal, resilient. "This version doesn't go to public servers. It hits a decentralized mesh of mirrors, servers hosted by people we trust. Thessaloniki, Oslo, Cairo, plus a few I seeded last year in student forums." Ayla raised an eyebrow. "You've been planning for this?" Emre gave a tight smile. "No. Just always assumed someone might try to shut us down someday." Cybele leaned forward. "Can it be traced?" "Not easily. IPS rotate, headers spoofed, and once it hits even one node, it spreads like dash dash." "Dandelions," Layla whispered. He nodded. "Exactly. Once it's out, it's out." He opened a terminal window and ran a command. On the second monitor, a local simulation lit up. An old image of the mosaic overlay appeared, then flickered and spread to a grid of blank tiles, each pulsing faintly. "This is what they'll see?" I asked. "Eventually, if they're fast enough, if they're watching." Layla stared at the screen. "Someone always is." There was no bravado in the room, just quiet, technical defiance. I looked at Emre, his jaw set, eyes ringed with exhaustion. He wasn't a hacker out for thrills. He was a coder trying to outmaneuver an empire. "Will it hold?" I asked. He didn't hesitate. "Long enough to matter." I nodded and clapped a hand on his shoulder. "Then let's make it count." Layla unzipped her shoulder bag and began laying items gently on the coffee table. Her grandmother's scarf, faded blue with a lace edge. The printed photo of the mosaic, a corner still charred from when an officer nearly destroyed it. And a folded page with the prayer verse, written in Anahid's handwriting. The letters shook in places, but the lines held steady. "This isn't just for us anymore," she said. Her voice didn't crack, it rang. Quiet but sure. Cybele reached across and smoothed the scarf, then slid the photo into the center of the table. "We carry the story forward." I leaned back, watching them arrange the fragments like relics on an altar. It wasn't ceremonial, it was necessary. This was their root system, and each item was a thread in the tapestry they refused to let unravel. "You lead," I said. "I follow." This was never mine to finish. For a moment, no one moved. Then Ayla picked up the photo and studied it with surgical precision. "We enter here, we split here, and the live feed kicks in at this angle." She pointed, her voice clipped, professional. "I'll track timing. We'll have 22 minutes, no buffer." "Noted," said Imre. He reached over and flipped the page to sketch something beside it, a burst pattern overlay. "This matches the echo radius of the original tunnel. If we plant a signal node here," he tapped, "we can boost it as we move." Cybele didn't say much, but she kept her hand on the scarf the whole time. Layla stood and looked at each of them. "Everyone ready?" Heads nodded, one by one. No grand speeches, just resolve. I stood last. And for the first time since arriving in Istanbul, I wasn't there to guide. I was there to serve. They didn't need my protection anymore. They needed my witness. We split up without a word, each slipping into the roles we knew best. Ayla moved with quiet focus, hauling a canvas bag of tools she'd prepped the night before. Headlamps, gloves, crowbars, small pry bars wrapped in towels to reduce noise. She handed each of us a compact comm mic, already synced. No need for instruction. Across the room, Emre crouched beside a mock stone slab we'd set up in the corner. It wasn't much, just a crate draped in tile-pattern vinyl. But it mimicked the building's composite materials well enough. He tapped on his keyboard, feeding the signal from his mesh server through the slab to simulate the drop-off we'd face underground. "Low latency, stable burst packet," he muttered. "She'll hold." Sibyl, perched near the window, practiced her narration in low tones. Not for us, for the camera, for the stream, for the ones who'd never stepped foot beneath a condemned church but who might hear her voice in the dark. "This is the true record," she whispered. "Unfiltered, unforgiven, undeleted." She paused, then rewrote the last line in her notebook. I walked into my bedroom, opened the top drawer of the nightstand, and pulled out a sealed envelope. The label read, "Professor Niazi, only if we don't return." I tucked it inside my satchel. Before leaving, I stood in the center of the room and turned slowly, taking it all in. The half-packed suitcase, the teacup on the sill, the faded sticker on my laptop from a robotics club 12 years gone. This isn't failure, I thought. This is the weight of doing something that might matter. When I stepped back into the main room, the others were already waiting. No one asked if I was sure. No one needed to. We nodded once in a silent rhythm of shared will and slipped into the night. Night in Istanbul has a pulse, slower than daytime, but deeper, like the city breathing from its bones. The streets shimmered from a light drizzle, reflecting the golden glow of street lamps and the soft swing of Ramadan lanterns. We moved in pairs, flanking each other like shadows that knew exactly where to fall. I walked beside Sibyl. She didn't say much, just tapped her fingers against the flash drive in her coat pocket like a heartbeat. Across the street, Layla and Ayla ducked behind a tram shelter, checking sightlines. Emre moved alone, but his gaze swept rooftops and corners, like he could see the code beneath reality. We converged at the edge of a forgotten garden wall, choked with vines and rusted iron. Beneath it, buried behind stacked crates and loose bricks, lay the service grate Ayla had flagged. It looked like nothing, which of course was everything. Ayla dropped to one knee and slid the crowbar under the lip of the grate. With a soft grunt, she cracked it open. The hinges groaned, but just once. Then silence. A wash of air hit us, cool, damp, tinged with iron and stone, the scent of time. "Tunnel dropped 6 meters, Ayla said, checking her phone. "Straight path, no junctions." We keep low. She went first, legs vanishing into the dark. Layla followed, then Emre. Sibyl gave me a nod, half defiance, half prayer, and slipped through next. I hesitated. Behind me, the city stretched upward in minarets and rooftops, its skyline a contradiction of power and beauty. I thought about every student I'd ever taught. Every one who had been told no too early. Everyone who had something to say and no one to hear it. Then I descended. The grate clanged shut above us, muffled by moss and memory. The tunnel walls closed in, brick and bone, older than memory. Ahead, Layla flicked on her headlamp, revealing a low arch and a narrow descent beyond. "They built the walls to divide," I whispered, more to myself than the others. "We walk beneath them, to remember." And we moved forward into the dark.